Okay, good evening. Thank you for coming this evening. On behalf of the City Club of Idaho Falls and our co-hosts here at Compass Academy, we want to thank you all for joining us for tonight's City Club Forum, or City Council, Forum. I am on the City Club Board Chair, and I want to welcome you on behalf again of the City Club of Idaho Falls and let you know a little bit of who we are. The City Club of Idaho Falls exists to sponsor and promote civil dialogue and discourse on all manners of public interest. We strive to do so in a nonpartisan and non-sectarian manner while encouraging broad participation by the community at large. It's a pleasure to have you participate with us and the Compass Academy students who have done everything for tonight's program, including contacting the candidates, preparing the questions, that were largely gathered by community members, doing the tech this evening, the very professionally put together programs, and welcoming our candidates and you all this evening. Let's go ahead and give Compass Academy a round of applause. If you don't know about Compass Academy, this school is a high school for grades 9 through 12, specializing in project-based learning. And through this class, these students have gathered all of the information, done the research to really conduct a professional civil dialogue here and invite the community members to participate. So we really admire what they have put together this evening and have appreciated that collaboration. I want to just point out for you in your programs, we do have City Club sponsors listed this evening, and it is our pleasure tonight to be working with East Idaho News and others to help stream this out to the public. We also want to particularly thank Principal Armstrong here of Compass Academy, Holly Dasher and Trayson Rasmussen, the educators here over these wonderful students, and everyone who made tonight possible. It's a pleasure to gather here and to be the guests of this wonderful facility and these students. And they've worked very hard to put everything together. So we just want to remind you that we are their guests and we are in a classroom setting. So here we are going to follow some classroom rules. And I'll go ahead and share those with you this evening. First, be respectful. Treat all candidates, moderators, and fellow attendees with courtesy, even if opinions differ. No disruptions. There'll be time after this evening's event to join the candidates and the fellow attendees in the lobby to talk to them. So we please ask that you refrain from interrupting any of the speakers or causing any disruptive behavior. Save applause and reactions for later after the forum. And again, the time to talk will be later and campaigning also out in the lobby. This is a harassment-free zone in the school zone. So anyone engaging in any kind of harassment or intimidation would be, of course, asked to leave this event. Thank you again for all joining us. We appreciate your participation in the process and for supporting these wonderful students. Now it is my pleasure to turn it over to Silas, tonight's moderator from Compass Academy. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to the 2025 Idaho Falls City Council Forum. First and foremost, we extend our thanks to the Compass Academy senior class who have worked hard these past couple of weeks to organize this forum. We'd also like to extend our thanks to Idaho Falls City Club for their collaboration and guidance and Eastern Idaho News for live streaming tonight's event. Tonight's forum will be done in two sections. The first half will focus on the candidates running for seat 2 and the second portion for seats 4 and 6. My name is Silas Peterson, and I will be your Master of Ceremonies for the first portion of tonight's event. To start off, we will introduce the candidates contesting for seat 2. First up, we have candidate Jordan Bardsley. Candidate Bardsley is a fierce fighter for the youth and those who teach them. She chose to run for city council when her daughter asked an important question about making a change, and she said to start local. She is, and I quote, a firm believer in leading by example and decided that that was exactly what she is going to do. Candidate Bardsley has worked in the trucking industry and is currently working at the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. She has experience in the education field as both a parent and a teacher and has been a resident of Idaho Falls for 11 years. Mrs. Bardsley knows the hardships and difficult experiences that life can throw, which is why she believes she can make a difference. She won't try to convince you, but she is confident that she will be able to show you her passion and strive to make a difference. Next, we have candidate Christopher Joseph Brunt. Mr. Brunt, a lifelong resident of Idaho Falls, is someone who aims to serve his community by ensuring everyone has a voice and believes that representation is crucial. Inspired by his family's political history, Brunt emphasizes his interest in politics and commitment to the role. With 6 years of experience in the food industry, volunteer work, and a century of theatrical work, he preserving Idaho Falls' quality of life and aims to be a thoughtful, strategic leader committed to the city's future. Next, we have candidate Mosey Moran. Candidate Moran is a connector, a builder, and a believer in the people. As founder of the Heart of Idaho Falls, he has created a home for local voices and a space where hope fills the room. His work in mental health, childcare, and nonprofits reflects a lifelong commitment to public safety, stronger mental health resources, and a true community connection. Mr. Moran partners with churches, supports small businesses, and stands with neighbors, whether through organized efforts or grassroots actions. He is running for City Council to ensure growth in Idaho Falls is guided by opportunity, unity, and the hometown spirit that makes this city family. Next, we have candidate Stephanie Taylor Thompson. Candidate Thompson's work as minister, a representative for our local behavior health center, and a member of the Idaho State Rehabilitation Council, she knows the power of intentional listening, which is exactly what she plans to promote on City Council. With education in criminology, sociology, social work, and a recent admission into law school, Thompson's perspective on making Idaho Falls a safer environment shines. And last, we have candidate Brad Whipple. Candidate Whipple was born in Idaho and graduated from Boise State University with a degree in electrical engineering and a master's in computer science from the University of Idaho. After this, he worked in cybersecurity and served for 6 years in the National Guard, where he learned the values of leadership and discipline, as well as commitment to teamwork and service. Mr. Whipple has actively worked for our community and is a great and dedicated member. Furthermore, he owns and operates a small business that provides electrical charging solutions to the military. This candidate is really determined, and he mainly focuses on finding practical solutions and would like to bring principled leadership to the Idaho Falls City Council. Now, I would like to turn the floor over to our moderator for the first portion of tonight's event, Martha Aquino.
Thank you, Silas. Good evening and welcome to the Idaho Falls City Council Forum of 2025 for Seat 2. My name is Martha Aquino and I will be serving as your moderator tonight. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few important rules to ensure this forum runs smoothly, respectfully, and efficiently. First, for our audience, we ask that you remain quiet throughout the forum. Please silence your cell phones and remember that recording and flash photography are not permitted. We also ask that you show respect to the candidates on stage, as well as your fellow audience members. Now for our candidates, each of you will have 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond to the given question. A green light will signal that your time to answer the question has started. A yellow light will appear when you have 15 seconds left, and a red light will signal that your time is up. Once you reach the end of your time, I may need to politely interrupt, and your microphone will be turned off so that we can move forward. Please be sure to speak clearly into your microphone and refrain from adjusting or handling it during the forum. Earlier this evening, we drew names to see which candidate goes first, and that candidate is Mr. Whipple. Mr. Whipple will receive the first question, then all candidates will have the opportunity to respond to the questions after Mr. Whipple, starting with Mrs. Bardsley and moving down the line. The second question will begin with Mrs. Bardsley and then continue down the line. Above all, we ask that you maintain civil discourse this evening, respecting both your fellow candidates and the audience. Please refrain from using offensive or personal language. Thank you for your cooperation. With that, let's begin tonight's forum. For our first question, what inspired you to run for city council, starting with candidate Whipple?
Well, my first exposure to local government started about a year ago when myself and my wife were developing an RV park out in Custer County. And so we went through the planning and zoning process and had some ups and downs that ultimately ended up in a lawsuit that we faced with the county. And so there I kind of realized the importance of wise decisions that follow the rules, follow the comprehensive plan. And that's what started to get me interested in politics. Fast forward to a few months ago, I started investigating or looking at Idaho Falls and what positions were open and the political landscape there. And in doing so, I started looking at other policies that candidates were running on. And I recognized that what I considered to be some deeply flawed policies that was the basis of their platform. And I believe that you are responsible for all the good that you do not do. And that is what pushed me to run for politics.
Thank you. Now moving on to candidate Bardsley.
What got me inspired for city council was my children. My oldest was freshly 18 during this last election and said, let's go, doing our civic duty. Obviously, since the recent election, there is a very, very big divide and discourse with side to side, so to speak. And we have many conversations on a daily basis, weekly basis, regarding what to do, what can we do. And so I told her, you got to start small. Start with yourself, start with our little trio, start with work, school, and ultimately it will ripple out. And City 2 came open, and so I have to practice what I preach, put my money where my mouth is. And so, yeah, going to be part of the process and do what I can where I can.
Thank you. Now moving on to candidate Brunt.
I'm inspired by stories that we were told growing up. My great-grandmother actually ran for mayor of Idaho Falls. And that was always a nice little bedtime story that we heard. And we heard the presence of villains. Boss Alba was the person's name. We were told about how Grandma stood up for her beliefs. She was a prohibitionist, so not exactly the most popular beliefs in the city of Idaho Falls at the time. And the family actually retreated to a dry farm in Arco to outrun death threats. That was kind of the theme of things that I grew up with, the idea of standing up for what you believe in and making a difference in the community that you're a part of. When I saw that seat 2 was open and there was no incumbent in place, I saw an opportunity to invest in the city that I'd already invested in. I'm a homeowner here in Idaho Falls, and I wanted to honor my great-grandmother's memory, somebody that I grew up idolizing.
Thank you. Now moving on to candidate Dominic.
What inspired me to run for city council is a lot of the day-to-day activities that I experience. Driving around Idaho Falls, it just does not seem right, the rate at which the city is growing, particularly with the high-density apartments. The traffic is getting worse, and it just seems like it's going to get worse before it gets better. It inspired me because I had to drive by it on a daily basis. Another thing that inspired me was the lack of communication from the city to the citizens. The city can put out information on when the pool's open, when your street's going to get plowed, but there was no avenue for communication from the citizens of Idaho Falls to the city council or to the mayor for that matter. So I want to open that up. I want to open up that lines of communication and put the citizens first.
Thank you. Now moving on to candidate Lee.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for being here tonight. I know there's lots of things that you could be doing, and I appreciate you coming and being engaged. And so the question, what inspired me to run for city council? I love our city. I think we live in an amazing place. We have, and it's seen by so many around, and that's why people want to come and live here and be our neighbors, because they see what we have to offer. We truly do have so much to be grateful for. What personally inspired me, and as I think about this, I remember being around 10 years old and being at a local dinner for the Salvation Army, where my dad was currently serving at that time as the board president. And I sat across from a man who was there, and he just told me how much he appreciated what my dad had done for him personally. And that just stuck with me. And my dad and my mom both just have always preached the importance of being engaged and involved in the communities that you live. And I've tried to do that no matter where I have lived. And here I've been on the Parks and Rec Commission for the last 7 years. We have amazing park system here in our city. I've been part of the Restoration Committee to restore Funland. I was part of the committee which put together Frontier Fields, which brought home fields to Idaho Falls High School athletes. And I coach soccer and have coached soccer in youth sports for the last almost 20 years. And I just think it's important to be engaged, and that's what I'm doing.
For our next candidate, we will have candidate Moran.
Everyday people asking me, honestly. I'm connected to a lot of people from the bottom of the hill to the top of the hill, and I get along with them. I've been at events with them, and I've been able to experience the city for everything that it has to offer, no matter what the socioeconomic background is, no matter what the religious or political background is. I had so much connection with people in this community that when I had my struggle with the city and people saw me stand up and stand up for myself and the music community that I represent, they decided to basically yell at me almost every time I saw them that it's time for you to put your money where your mouth is, stand up, and be the voice of the everyday people that not only struggle but also want some time to have fun connecting with the city. And I feel like I'm able to provide a voice to not only young people but older people as well, people right in the middle, and every single person in this community has something that they're passionate about, and they need to be able to be heard and be connected with. And I have the ability to not only connect with them, but also understand them at every level and communicate that in a sense of policy, and make sure that that communication moves forward on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you. Now for candidate Thompson.
I absolutely love Idaho Falls. I'm born and raised here. I have a beautiful family that is here, and I was inspired to run by those that are recovering from addiction. I absolutely love my recovery community. As a person that is in long-term recovery myself, I am an advocate, a relentless advocate for them. I'm an advocate for those that are returning back to our community from a term of incarceration, as well as a strong supporter for our first responders. I have spent the past 14 years of my career working cross-functionally and addressing systemic change, and that's what I would like to see for the city of Idaho Falls, ensuring that there's collaboration, communication, and ensuring that everybody knows that they have a voice at the table. I firmly believe that those that are closest to the problem are closest to the solution.
Thank you. Now for our next question. Residents are concerned with the rise in crime rates in the city. According to Idaho Falls Police Department, the citywide crime rate has increased by 24% year over year. What do you think could be done to decrease crime rates and make citizens feel safer in their city? Starting with candidate Bardsley.
Outside of hiring more Idaho Falls police, I think there is a disconnect also with Bonneville County Sheriff. They essentially serve and provide service to Ammon area. I think better training and more IFPD and a bigger presence. I also think, and this obviously is bigger picture type thing, of not so many slaps on the wrist. When it comes to crime, there is a lot of, and again, I know that caseloads and things of that sort can be a little bit overwhelming for the current court system, but I think more resources for our first responders. My dad was a cop. He was on the original Green River Killer Task Force up in Washington, so I'm very familiar with what it is and what it takes to be a police officer. So I think we need to get better training, more resources, and more of them to serve the community better.
Thank you. Now moving on to candidate Brunt.
I agree with that. We definitely need more people in our police force. I think, though, with the overall crime issue, I think that one of the things we absolutely should discuss and understand is the feeling of apathy that exists at times in our community. We see it in the voting. We see it in a lot of the way that the people are engaged with decisions that are made. When we have turnouts for voting that is under 10% of our population that's eligible to vote. I would like to see people in place of influence and authority more engaged in their community. I would like to see people who are approachable. I'd like to see people who are definitely part of the community and kind and empathetic. I think that the community's overall feelings of how it looks at itself and how Idaho Falls thinks of itself has a direct correlation with an increase in crime. And we do live in an amazing town. We live in an amazingly beautiful city. And I know that people love living here. And I think that an increase in crime is directly related to how people feel that they can interact with the people who are in charge of their city. So more police and more able interaction with the people.
Thank you. Now moving on to candidate Dominic.
In getting ready for running this race, we interviewed a lot of the department heads and the chiefs. And when we talked to the police chief of Idaho Falls, we had asked him what are his priorities and who set your priorities. So he had said to us that his priority is number one is getting more towards community-based policing, which is kind of like the beat system, and I'm 100% for that. I think we should dive right into that a policeman in a neighborhood that you can call if you have an issue is a fantastic idea. But the second priority that he had said was code enforcement. The code enforcement recently switched from the city to the police chief for the police department. So the current city council's second priority for the police was code enforcement. I think we really need to put an emphasis on public safety. He had told us that the sex crimes year over year is up 9%. We need to focus on that. We need to focus on the newly developed special victims unit. We need to focus on the health and safety of the citizens of Idaho Falls.
Thank you. Now moving on to candidate Lee.
The first thing that I would say is I agree with what Ms. Dominic said here, and that is about community policing. I wish I could say that I had come up with this idea, but I know it started with Jim Francis as they have started to implement this throughout our city. And I do think community policing in and of itself will be so effective. As those officers are getting into neighborhoods and they're knowing the business owners and they're knowing the people who live there and they're a familiar face and a trusted face. And I think that as that helps, as that happens and continues to happen throughout our community, I think that number one we'll see drastic reductions in crime from that alone. I think that as our community grows, we obviously, the City Council will need to ensure that we have the police department staffed appropriately. That's part and parcel with the growth of a community, is ensuring that public safety needs are met. But I am a huge believer and proponent of community policing, and I look forward to seeing how those efforts continue to improve our community.
Thank you. Now moving on to candidate Moran.
Community policing is something that I also very much believe in. I also believe that treating our police officers well is also a big proponent of that, because if we have police that are comfortable and able to have good lives, they will police better. So revisiting the possibility of a police union is something that I think it would be incredibly helpful, as well as finding ways to have enough of a budget for more officers, based off of studies being done that we are very much we are very much under the number needed of police officers, but also on a practical day-to-day basis, mentorship from community leaders, whether it's city council or other people in the community. Mentorship saved me, and it's something that I continually lean on in my everyday life. When I worked mental health, it was mentorship. When I worked for nonprofits, it was mentorship. Child care was mentorship. If we don't have solid examples in our community, not just police, we start to imitate things that are either on TV. We lose a sense of identity of our community. And so if we want Idaho Falls to stay Idaho Falls and keep the spirit of it, we're going to need to stand up a little bit better and be mentors to young people and old people, and really start those conversations and really show up for each other as a community base, not just a police base as well.
Thank you. Now moving on to candidate Thompson.
There are layers to this issue, and therefore we need to take a multifaceted approach to it. Law enforcement, most certainly, they absolutely need to be supported. With that is community policing. There is qualitative and quantitative data that proves that this is effective across the country. I have over 20 years of lived experience with law enforcement, and the past 15 years I've spent my career working with law enforcement on both the local, state, and national level. While supporting law enforcement, we also really need to think about those that are struggling with addiction and mental health. Again, going back to my introduction, those that are closest to the problem are closest to the solution, but they are often furthest away from the resources. If we are getting the resources that are needed to our recovery community, ensuring that centers like the Center for Hope are strengthened, our crisis center are strengthened, that they are getting all of the resources that we need, and we are starting to work with those that are coming out of prison rather than working against them. As long as we are working towards a collaborative relationship, that is what really decreases crime in the community.
Thank you. Now moving on to candidate Whipple.
So the short-term answer is more police, as well as retaining police. When I spoke with the Fraternal Order of Police, they described some significant budget issues, not only in hiring the number of qualified candidates, but also retaining those police officers after they're hired. Of course, that represents a huge cost to the city if we're training police only for them to leave to the county or leave to Treasure Valley for greener pastures. Now, of course, there's no such thing as a free sandwich, so the money has to come from somewhere. It's easy to say, well, we'll just give them more money. But the budget doesn't quite work like that. One area that I would look to is possibly cutting the Parks and Recreation Department. Everyone hates a cut, but it looks like, despite Idaho Falls being 4 times the size of Ammon, we're spending about 9 times on our Parks and Recreation Department. So I'd look there first to free up some funds to put that towards safety. And then I think the longer term solution is to provide viable means to invest in the community, viable means to housing. When individuals are not invested in their community, they don't have a path to homeownership, they don't have a path to feeling like they belong. So I think it's important to maintain those pathways to affordable housing.
Thank you. Now for our next question. Many residents in Idaho Falls have expressed concerns about how the roads are not maintained properly, calling out what they view as excessive potholes and inconsistent snow plowing. With the rapid growth in Idaho Falls, conditions are likely to get worse. What are your plans to maintain roads better without inconveniencing residents? Starting with candidate Brunt.
As a resident of the lettered streets, I can tell you, I think the problem here is there's a difference with how things are approached, particularly in the wintertime. I know I live in a neighborhood where the snowplows come through, but before that happens, they tow the cars if they're in the way. I know that other neighborhoods on the other side of town don't have that. Plows go around them. I understand we live in a place where the roads are more narrow and they say that it has to happen that way. But I think my personal plans is to make sure that there is an even-handed approach to dealing with road maintenance and things like snow removal and that kind of thing, especially involving the community as a whole. Where the community comes, puts their input in, and the people who are on the city council understand that they work for the people, and finding out what the best solutions are for the city is through the people who live on those streets, and finding out what our marching orders should be, because we are employees of the city of Idaho Falls, first and foremost.
Thank you. Now moving on to candidate Dominic.
The city council is a very, very powerful body in what goes on in the city and the city government. What I would like to see and what I will put forward is putting more money towards the current residents of Idaho Falls rather than rushing into future development as quickly as we are. We need to shift the focus on the future residents and put it on the current residences, their needs and their infrastructure needs that they need.
Thank you. Now on to candidate Lee.
Thank you. To me, this is, when we talk about inconvenience to residents, I think this largely stems from communication. So to me, this is a communication issue. And I believe that the information is out there. Sometimes it's just hard to access. I think as the city, we have to recognize that just because we have information on our website, we have to recognize that that may not be the source for which people want to consume their information and get it. And so one idea that has come to me really through the campaign trail, and that is to create a citywide weekly podcast where we take 3 to 5 minutes each week and we update citizens and residents of what's going on this week. What is city council talking about this week? What are they voting on? What are those measures that are being discussed? We talk about roads. Hey, here are the roads that are going to be closed, so you should plan your route to work this week a little bit differently because X, Y, and Z roads might be closed. And these are the streets that are going to be plowed, or hey, here's where you go to get that information. And just make sure that if we can do that in a 3 to 5 minute time frame and we do it across all platforms, I believe that that is a way that we can really get information out to sources that people are utilizing and consuming information from.
Thank you. Now for candidate Moran.
We actually have very similar views on that, but my time frame was more about 30 seconds, a minute and 30 seconds, because I don't want to pay attention that long. But yes, that communication is absolutely extremely important, and that's going to solve a lot of our issues. And so I prefer video format at 30 seconds to a minute and a half, because that's what our attention spans are, as well as looking into things like more night work, because we don't do a lot of night work in Idaho Falls, and that's something that we can invest into if it makes sense in the city budgets. But we always have to go back to that budget to make sure we're doing things practically, as well as things like public transportation, because public transportation leads to less traffic, less wear on roads, and it makes it so we don't have as many cars going through a construction zone when we're trying to deal with those issues, as well as just keeping people. It's a more predictable route when we're talking about construction, and it gives people more access to things while not overburdening our traffic system like it already is.
Thank you. Now for candidate Thompson.
I think one of the major issues is that we are taking such a reactive approach to planning, and and infrastructure, roads, maintenance, rather than a proactive approach. And part of that proactive approach would include communication, clear communication. I also agree with Mr. Lee and Mr. Moran, ensuring that we're utilizing the tools that we have right now and just strengthening those so that we're getting information out to the residents of Idaho Falls in real time, and that nothing is coming out as a surprise, so that they can schedule accordingly, that we can all collaborate and work together. It's not such a hindrance.
Thank you. Now for candidate Whipple.
Well, this is a real tough one because you can't maintain your roads without inconveniencing residents. To do that maintenance, you have to close a lane because your workers can't occupy the same space as cars, or at least I have not found any workers that are willing to do that. So I think it's going to come down to timeliness, and the solution from a city council perspective is to maintain a properly funded department, to accept competitive bids, to do it in a timely manner.
Thank you. Now for candidate Bardsley.
I'm gonna jump on the bandwagon with a couple of my cohorts here. Communication. I know Mosey's big social media. Lee was talking about podcasts and things of that sort. I'm not very big on the social media. I don't do a whole lot on the Book of Faces or Instagram or anything of that sort. I'm kind of a hard paper, old school gal, if you will. But communication, if somebody tells me the only way you can see this is going to a website, yes, I will go do that. I sit in front of screens all day long. The last thing I want to do on my free time is to sit in front of another screen. But I do agree with them, communication. While to fix it, we will have to inconvenience them, but if they are aware of what to do, where to go, when to do it, it is not as big of an inconvenience than just, here we go, we're gonna close down this road, this lane for 3 weeks. Bye. So, communication.
Thank you. For our next question, according to the Post-Register, Idaho Falls was ranked 13th on the list of fastest growing cities in the United States in 2023. There have been concerns that the city may not be able to accommodate the continued growth. What are the main problem areas you see with our pace of growth, and what are your plans to keep up with it? Starting with candidate Dominic.
I see it every day on a daily basis. For me, the biggest problem is the high density housing complexes that are going up everywhere. There's people that have lived in a neighborhood for 20 years, and suddenly right next to them they have a 3-story apartment building looking down into their backyard where their kids are playing. The pace is not sustainable. How I would maintain it, I would slow it down. And this pace was brought about by the concepts from Imagine IF, which is Idaho Falls Growth and Development Plan. I recommend you glance through it before the election. But this is all brought out by Imagine IF, and that was approved by City Council in 2021. And that is the year that all of this growth started happening. So the first thing I would do is put the brakes on Imagine IF and get a more reasonable growth plan that puts the citizens first and puts smaller single-family dwellings first to make the families, again, the priority of the city.
Thank you. Now on to candidate Lee.
I think this is a great question, and obviously one that has come up quite a bit on the campaign trail. I guess I'd first start by saying that I think the challenges that come along with growth, those are fun ones to have for our community. We have to recognize that people are moving here for a reason. And again, it's because we live in such an amazing place. And I think that when growth is viewed as a positive feature and something that can enhance our lives and not degrade it, it has to be done with a recognition that those who are in leadership are making those growth decisions regarding infrastructure, regarding amenities, regarding public safety, regarding finance. They all interrelate together. And you have to be able to take all those data sets and combine them together and make true strategic decisions, because we're not going to be able to stop growth. We just won't. The genie is out of the bottle. We live in a great place. People are going to continue to come and move here because of what we have to offer, and we shouldn't be afraid of that. That's fantastic. We should be welcoming them. Welcome, come be our neighbor. But as we make those decisions regarding growth, they do need to be done with a very strategic and purposeful process and way, and I believe that that can be done as we aggregate appropriate data sets, look at the impacts, understand the trade-offs, and make the best decisions regarding growth for our citizens and residents here in Idaho Falls.
Thank you. Now for candidate Moran.
We have similar mindsets on a lot of things. We understand that growth is going to happen no matter what. For me, the way to help this growth and make it make sense is to make sure that there's money that's staying in Idaho Falls. One of my 3 things that I'm really going after is local business advocacy. I want to see, because there's going to be, I believe in a small government with a big impact at the end of the day. So what I want to see is a registry of local businesses tied to incentives, not tax incentives, but impact fee incentives, utility incentives, permitting incentives, things like that, that where these developers coming in building things are more incentivized to use local businesses based on the area. And when that happens, then more local businesses have money, and the money is staying locally, and it's not being outsourced anywhere like it currently is. Because if the city is going to grow, the local wealth needs to grow, and if the local wealth is going to grow, then we're going to be able to handle that growth a little bit more. Our economy is going to make more sense, and you're going to see lives change. You're going to see generational wealth happen. You're going to see businesses not only pop up but stay open and grow. It's going to mean everything to this community.
Thank you. Now for candidate Thompson.
The residents that I've spoke to about growth in our community, yes, they have concerns with it, but I think the bigger concern that they have is the lack of transparency and the lack of communication. And again, going back to that we are being very reactive to growth rather than being proactive to it. So I think that we could clear up a lot of things just by ensuring that we have clear, transparent communication and that residents are involved in the growth rather than everything just being predetermined without their input.
Thank you. Now for candidate Whipple.
So the secret's out. Idaho Falls is great, and that's causing a lot of growth. The growth is happening because Idaho Falls is desirable, not necessarily because we're not building it so that they will come. It's that there's a demand for it, and companies, developers, builders, they're recognizing the need for housing. I feel the pain of the growth. I mean, I drive the same streets. I drive down, I see the traffic, I experience the traffic, and I see the apartments going up. The city could potentially try to slow that growth. I think that's a terrible idea. Basic supply and demand economics of that, if you try and do that, you'll have one of 2 things happen. The prices will go up, or they'll go elsewhere to Ammon, and we'll get the traffic, they'll get the tax base, or you could have both. Now, with dealing with the growth through the infrastructure, that is the government's job. Like, it's not the people's to support the government. The government's supposed to support the people and build that growth. This does become a bit of a chicken and egg problem. What comes first? Well, one of the major funding mechanisms to support this growth is through impact fees. So I think the growth needs to happen simultaneously. After those permits are pulled, the impact fees are paid. Now the city has the funding to pay for the road expansion, parks, police, fire, things like that.
Thank you. Now for candidate Bardsley.
I too, just like everybody here in this room, drive the same roads, see the same high-density apartment complexes popping up left and right in front of schools, parks, et cetera, et cetera. And like the general consensus, growth is inevitable. I am not a native to Idaho Falls, but I have come to call Idaho Falls home, and I've come to love this town. Change is inevitable. I want, not change, growth. Growth is inevitable. I want the change, I want the growth for progress. I want it for the better, and the consistency of what Idaho Falls is for progress, not for change. I don't want it to become another big little city.
Thank you. Now for candidate Brunt.
I think I'm going to echo this because I think it's super important. We have a core issue within our community. In the rooms that I've been in the people that I've spoken with, and it's been touched on here, it's the lack of communication and the quality of communication. When people go and are involved with City Council, they walk away feeling like they weren't heard, or worse, they were insulted. We will not be able to keep up with our growth if people cannot rely on the people making the decision to facilitate that growth, to listen to them, to be heard. If we put people in office who don't understand the basic concept that they are our employees and that our word is what makes the wheel turn, then we're going to be in trouble. I support the idea of selecting people who want to listen first, learn from listening, and work after that. That is my pledge to people, and I think that that will handle our growth very, 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 very well. And I think that's what we're absolutely missing right now. So I would urge voters who are concerned about growth, and it is most people, to make sure the people you select to put in whatever seat it is are concerned about working for you, not for themselves, and moving the city forward.
Thank you. For our next question, Idaho Falls residents express concerns about the areas connecting Idaho Falls and Ammon. Considering both sides are constantly exchanging business, what collaborative opportunities do you think the neighboring cities could have to make the lives of the people of both cities simpler? Starting with candidate Lee.
I love this question. I think it's so important to understand exactly that Idaho Falls is not an island, and that the decisions that our surrounding community makes, they impact us here. So whether that's the leaders in the county, the leaders of Ammon, Iona, Yukon, those decisions impact us all as a community. And so I think to have the collaboration across those entities and those communities is critical and it's crucial. Lisa Burtonshaw and we recently met with Brian Powell, who's going to be the next mayor of Ammon. We talked about this very issue. And we talked about creating a tool and working together, should we have the opportunity, where we could create a tool and share data sets and share information so that everybody making decisions around our community have that same data set that they can use and learn from and make the appropriate decisions, so that we're not operating in separate silos, but that we're truly sharing information across this great community that we all live in. And with that data, I think the best types of decisions can be made as we work together and share the information and share the data for the best possible outcomes for our residents collectively as a community, and not just focused on just our citizens or residents of Idaho Falls.
Thank you. Now for candidate Moran.
You keep saying the first part of my answers. It's crazy. I believe in constant communication and collaboration. I am somebody who brings people together constantly, and so exactly what you're talking about, bringing Ammon, Idaho Falls, and Bonneville County together to work together more is super important. And the way that we do that is not only wanting to collaborate, but part of collaborating is calling people out. So there are some issues in city government and county government as well, where there's some egos involved that need to be called out, and there's some handshaking behind. But then when it comes to signing some papers, things aren't happening. Like when it comes to the gift program, it should have been in Ammon already, and if you look into that, it absolutely should have been, and that got taken down a mere days before it was supposed to be approved. So I want to know why, and that why shouldn't just be, if the people of Ammon didn't want it, they did want it. The people of Ammon want more collaboration between Idaho Falls and Ammon. I want to see more collaboration when it comes to the fire department, more in services in general. And what that's going to take is not only collaborating, but also providing that accountability to sit on the seat and say, hey, if you're not listening, it's time to listen, and I'm going to make sure you do, and I'm going to communicate with the people about that as well.
Thank you. Now for candidate Thompson.
The past 14 years, I have worked cross-functionally across multiple sectors. And the work that I've done with them, just what we have been able to get changed, it's all about changing systems and taking a collective, collaborative approach, again, ensuring that transparency is key and that you're putting residents first. So taking the residents of Ammon and the residents of Idaho Falls and ensuring that we are all working together and making sure that everyone is at the table. Again, I'll say this again, those that are closest to the problem are closest to the solution. We can take a collaborative approach. Ammon is a great city. I believe that their leadership wants to work closely alongside Idaho Falls to ensure that we can be the best we can be.
Thank you. Now for candidate Whipple.
One area I see a big area for improvement on collaboration is emergency response. Ammon, Idaho Falls, where are you? You'd have to look at a map. But that doesn't really matter when there's an emergency. And the way it's currently set up with Idaho Falls Fire, and then you have Ammon has their own fire, Idaho Falls contracts with Bonneville County. I'd look at seeing if there's room to expand that into Ammon so that Idaho Falls Fire can serve maybe both, and that could be funded through Ammon taxpayers as well as Idaho Falls taxpayers.
Thank you. Now for candidate Bardsley.
Not to be an echo, but collaboration. Take it a step further with Brendan's podcast idea. City Council of both Idaho Falls and Ammon. Collaborate that way so both communities can come together as well and share their ideas and hear the voices of the community in regards to what would be best for both, not just one versus the other.
Thank you. Now for candidate Brunt.
I would say echo is a good thing when it's a good idea. Yeah, there's an amazing amount of great ideas. And as far as collaborative opportunities goes, we're seeing it now with the forums. When people are coming together and being engaged like all of you are now, and we can do that with the other cities as well. And it can all be important, especially if we're electing people who understand that they need to listen to you first, that they put representation before leadership. And that's the most important thing. And we have that coming up now because we have a chance to put people in seats and be able to make sure that those people are operating under those protocols.
Thank you. Now for candidate Dominic.
I absolutely believe that there should be cooperation or collaboration between Idaho Falls, Ammon, and also Bonneville County. The current city council has liaisons to all the departments, so they have city council members that reach out to each of the departments or the police and the fire. So I would like to see a liaison system for the communities, for a Bonneville County liaison, for a Bonneville County or an Ammon liaison to just interact on a regular basis so everybody knows what's going on in the region and we can figure out what's best as a whole for this community.
Thank you. For our next question, what uniquely qualifies you to lead Idaho Falls? Starting with candidate Moran.
When it comes to being unique, I don't feel like I have to explain too much on that. But I'm very much connected to so many people in this community, and what makes me a good leader is the fact that not only do I listen, I also put that into practice, and I have had to have foregone things that I was passionate about in order to match the community. Like for one, I put on music all the time. I'm not a heavy metal fan, but I do heavy metal music all the time because that's what the community wanted. Where I really shine in that is the fact that even if it's not something that directly affects me, I make it a point to go out into the community, find the voices that are unheard, and amplify those voices so they have a seat at the table. There's a lot of people that have social anxieties that aren't able to stand up and speak. They have great ideas, they have problems that need to be dealt with, but if we're not able to communicate with people who don't feel the need to have all the attention on them like we all do, then we're going to have an issue with hearing all the voices in the community. So we really need to make sure that we're finding the unheard voices and amplifying them, and that's what I'm good at.
Thank you. Now for candidate Thompson.
I am qualified to lead Idaho Falls because of the mentors that I have in my life, the mentors that I have had in my life for the past 14 years. 15 years ago, I was released homeless in the middle of winter in Idaho Falls. Just being released from prison, had absolutely zero hope and zero resources available to me. Because of the mentors that I have had in my life, I have been able to represent myself through 2 full pardons, through 2 different governors. I am on my way to law school. I now serve with the nation's largest prison ministry. In every state in the country, we serve on justice reform, criminal justice reform. And my mentors, my leaders have poured into me, ensuring that I know firsthand that you take care of the people that you are leading. And I really pride myself on surrounding myself around people that make me uncomfortable, because that's how I learn. You don't learn when you're around people that just agree with you all the time. And that is what makes me a good leader. I'm here, I'm ready to learn. I want to be around people that disagree with me, that have different backgrounds, that are ready to take a collaborative approach.
Thank you. Now for candidate Whipple.
I think I bring a unique skill set to the table. I'm experienced in policy. I spent a little over a year writing cybersecurity policy for the Pentagon, writing policy related to facility-related control systems. I'm familiar with the state statutes. I've got experience litigating a land use case. So I'm familiar with how the local Land Use Planning Act feeds into the ordinances, and how those all connect together. So the experience, I would use that to keep the taxpayer out of costly legal battles from bad decisions. I have experience in managing budgets from the private sector. I've managed fairly large budgets, working with the DoD, working with private utilities. And I have I'm a candidate with specific changes I would use my legislative powers for if I was elected. I have on my website, bradwhipple4if.com, several issues that I think the city could improve if we change the local ordinances. One of them is allowing the appeal process to go to your elected members in a de novo manner, so we can hear new evidence instead of an appellate review. I think that's one of the big complaints when citizens say we're not being heard. Well, it's not that we don't want to hear you, it's that we can't hear you. We cannot hear the new evidence that you might be bringing to the table. And so that's one of the areas I'd change.
Thank you. Now for candidate Bardsley.
What uniquely qualifies me is I'm willing to do the work. I think me just running in and of itself speaks volume. I have no background, I have no history with so much of the experience that's on this panel that I'm on, but I'm here to do the work. Like Stephanie had said, getting outside of your comfort zone, and I was telling somebody earlier out there, that is when I learn the most, that is when I grow the most. I'm trying to be the good I want to see in my community. And so that's what I preach to my children and their friends and my friends when I'm at work. I do work for the state, so I'm already very familiar with being a good steward with taxpayer dollars. I think it's the hair, really. That's what makes me unique.
Thank you. Now for candidate Brunt.
I'm a little flummoxed with the word lead. In this position, what is core and most important, I feel, is representation. And so often in discourses and discussions that I've had and that I've heard, the word lead comes up and supersedes the word representation. And I have a problem with that, because this job, again, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face, hopefully I don't turn blue, it'll match my tie. But this job is all about listening. And what would qualify me to occupy this seat would be my willingness to listen first, learn after listening and hearing the people of Idaho Falls for a change, and then working based on what we learn and what I know the people of Idaho Falls seek. That's what would qualify me for this position.
Thank you. Now for candidate Dominic.
I feel that the city of Idaho Falls, the city council needs new faces. I think we need new ideas. I think we need new ways to problem solve. I have extensive business experience with budgeting and interpreting regulations. I could problem solve. So I think that I love this city and I want to work for the citizens of Idaho Falls.
Thank you. Now for candidate Lee.
Thank you. I think what qualifies me to help be a leader here in Idaho Falls is throughout my business career, I've always had an open door policy with any of the teams and people that I've worked with. And people know that they can come and approach me. I've never claimed to have a monopoly on good ideas. I know that there's so many great ideas out there, and it's important to listen. And I think that's a common theme that you've heard amongst everyone up here today, is that listening is so important if you're in this role. For me, I try to keep this on the down low, but I do have my CPA. I earned that in Washington, D.C., and so I have a strong financial background. I used that as I converted it into commercial real estate development, where I worked for Target Corporation. For Target, I did site selection and land acquisition for them and many municipalities across the country, many of which who are just like Idaho Falls or were just like Idaho Falls, and going through the struggles and challenges of growth. And I saw those city councils which dealt well with that and were strategic and purposeful. And I felt like I was able to pick up best practices really across the country from many great cities that we could learn and pattern from. And but most of all, I just promised to listen. I promised to listen. I've been engaged in making our community a great place, and I promise to continue to do so.
Thank you all. That concludes the questions for Seat 2. Now we'll turn the attention back to our Master of Ceremonies, Silas Peterson.
Thank you to all of our candidates for Seat 2. We will now have a 5-minute intermission to switch over to our candidates for Seats 4 and 6. Thank you again.
back to the Idaho Falls City Council Forum for seats 4 and 6. My name is Abigail Harward, and I am your second Master of Ceremonies for tonight. Before we begin, I'd like to reiterate a few important rules for the audience. We ask that you remain quiet throughout the forum, and please remember to silence your cell phones. We will begin our second session by introducing our candidates for seats 4 and 6. Our first candidate for seat 4 is candidate Jared Dominic. Candidate Dominic is a Marine Corps veteran with over 30 years of professional experience. He works in the waste management for Idaho Environmental Coalition, has supported INL missions for 15 years, and holds a bachelor's degree in radiation health physics. Mr. Dominic has worked at several major DOE sites across the country. He and his family are dedicated to keeping Idaho Falls' small-town feel and atmosphere as it grows, prioritizing current citizens and local businesses in city planning. He supports affordable, single-family home development and wants to carefully manage the city's growth. Next for seat 4, we have Councilman Jim Francis. Councilman Francis moved to Idaho Falls at the age of 4 in 1953 and went on to earn a BA in history from Arizona State University and an MA in comparative Western U.S. and Canadian history from the University of British Columbia. He taught history and writing in the public schools for 37 years. He's an award-winning teacher, having been selected as Idaho's Teacher Scholar and Idaho Teacher of the Year. In 2017, the Idaho Falls City Club honored him with the John Hanson Civility and Public Service Award. Francis has served 2 terms on the City Council and is seeking his 3rd. He is dedicated to problem solving, seeking middle ground in resolving issues, and planning and acting for the future of the community. Next, we will have the candidates for seat 6, Councilman Jim Freeman. Councilman Freeman was elected to the Idaho Falls City Council in 2017 and is seeking his 3rd term. Previously, he served with the Idaho Falls Fire Department for 26 years as a firefighter, paramedic, and captain. He is a lifelong resident of Idaho Falls and has always been community-oriented and currently serves on the board of directors for the Idaho Falls Arts Council. Mr. Freeman is also the vice chair of the Greater Idaho Falls Transit and the vice chair of the Bonneville Metropolitan Planning Organization. His current City Council responsibilities also include Idaho Falls Power and Fiber, the Police Department, the Fire Department, and Military Affairs. Now I'd like to hand the floor over to our moderator, Elise Wilkson, for the second portion of tonight's forum.
Thank you, Abigail. My name is Elise Wilkson, and I'll be serving as your moderator for seats 4 and 6 tonight. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few important rules to ensure the forum runs smoothly and respectfully. For our candidates, each of you will have 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond to questions. A green light will appear when your time has started, a flashing yellow light will appear when you have 15 seconds left, and a red light will signal that your time is up. At that point, I may need to politely interrupt, and your microphone will be turned off so that we can move forward. Please be sure to speak clearly into your microphone and refrain from adjusting or handling it during the forum. To determine the order of responses, we have drawn names at random. We will begin with candidate Dominic, then we will proceed down the line. Above all, we ask that you maintain civil discourse this evening, respecting both your fellow candidates and the audience. Please refrain from using offensive or personal language. Thank you for your cooperation. With that, let's begin tonight's forum. For our first question, tell us about why you chose to run for City Council.
Yes, my wife got the original idea and she came up with it. Then when she decided that she was going to run, I decided that it would be good for me to support her and also to support the citizens of Idaho Falls by running for City Council as well. There was a lot of things similar to what she discussed. Just going around the city, seeing the way things have been changing so rapidly that it was kind of it was a little bit distressful for us. We've been here 15 years, raised our children here, and the rate of change is very fast. And so that was one of the main things that led us down this path, along with the high-density housing. We really like the culture of Idaho Falls, the small-town feel and atmosphere, the single-family homes, and the friendly nature of it. And that's what we want to try and preserve, not have it be overwhelmed by apartment buildings.
Thank you, candidate Dominic. Next, the question will be moved to you, Councilman Francis.
Yes. I chose to run for this because 8 years ago, I was inspired by Kate Curley, who you may know in the 1890s, early 20th century, said, basically, what we do now is the future. It builds the future. And I still believe in that, and I want to be inspired by her. So whenever I think about this, it's about the future and what we do. And when we think about what Kate Curley and the people following her in the 20th century did, it's amazing. What I love about Idaho Falls is we're resilient. We've been changing since the beginning. You know when Mr. Taylor built the bridge across the Snake River? It fell down. Did he give up? Did he say, I'm not going to get any change? He said, I'll build another one. And he did, and he made a success out of it with a toll road. That is Idaho Falls, and it's been there since the beginning. 125 years ago, we established a power company owned by the city, and now we have some of the lowest rates in the country. And we are prepared for growth because we keep anticipating for power. Just think, not long ago, we built a water tower, a new one, twice as big. We are prepared for water power in this community far into the future, and we do it in all departments. I love this city, and I love how resilient it is, so that's why I'm running.
Thank you, Councilman Francis. Now on to Councilman Freeman.
Thank you. I originally ran 8 years ago, inspired by my family involvement in the city of Idaho Falls. My father served on city council, and my grandfather served on city council, and I worked for the fire department for 26 years. I've spent half of my life as a servant of this city. So I thought it was time to take on a bigger role after I retired from fire and step up and keep serving the city, and I'm very proud to do that. The reason I'm running again is because there's work still to be done. We've accomplished a lot in these 8 years I've been on council, but there are many things that are left to be done, and there's things that we can do better, and I'm aware of that. You know, our fiber project has been an incredible project that we've done that doesn't get the recognition it deserves these last 8 years. I'm on the gift board as the co-chair. I would love to see expansion in public transit. And Jim and I will agree on this. I know we do about, we need to build ourselves a new recreation center that serves all generations, that's this city deserves. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm running again, is to make sure that we keep advancing the city and keep moving forward.
Thank you, Councilman Freeman. Now for our next question. Idaho Falls citizens have voiced concerns regarding the lack of affordable housing within the community. What are your plans to address the citizens' concerns about the availability of affordable housing? We will start the question off with Councilman Francis.
This is a very important issue, and my slogan is simple. If you work in Idaho Falls, you should be able to live in Idaho Falls. Does the city have a role in that as a city government? It has a small role, but we can't build all the buildings because we don't build those buildings. But up to this point, when we instituted impact fees, we made the decision that we could use some of that money and waive it for people who wanted to do an affordable housing complex. That worked really well in a way because very little city money put into those affordable housing gave a lot of federal money. And the people were so proud, they were so happy when they put the bid in with the federal money that they had a little bit of support from the city, like $50,000. Made a huge difference for building affordable housing. Do we need more? Yes. Are there other ways to do it? Yes. The possibility is things like we waive some of the hookup fees that developers pay for certain buildings if they guarantee it's a workforce housing. It's not going to be simple. One of the ways to obtain workforce housing is to meet the demand for housing within the city.
Thank you, Councilman Francis. Now the question will move to you, Councilman Freeman.
Thank you. This is a very difficult issue, and I agree that we do have a housing issue in Idaho Falls, and part of the reason that prices in Idaho Falls have skyrocketed like they have is because we have a shortage of housing. And I think a lot of the building that you see going on in the high density housing that has caught everyone's attention is in reaction to that we were missing middle housing, that we didn't have anything in the middle between single-family homes and rentals. And a lot of the houses on the market also are disappearing from sales as they're being used as short-term rentals. And I don't think that's being addressed. And I think that's something that we need to talk about. This is not a problem that the City Council can solve by ourselves, though. We are giving incentives for lower income housing. And we've talked about having housing for workers to live in, like they have in Sun Valley, like they have in Driggs. I need to advocate. We have been advocating, and I will continue to advocate at the state level, particularly, but also at the federal level. We need help with this. This is a problem that's happening all over the country, and we're not going to be able to solve this all by ourselves.
Thank you, Councilman Freeman. The question is on to you, candidate Dominic.
Yes, I was looking at some of the population growth. From 21 to 24, there was a 3.7% population growth. Over that same time frame, there was a 43% increase in the amount of apartment buildings that were built. There was also 1,250 single-family homes and duplexes that were built. So based on those numbers, the population increase doesn't reflect the quantity of homes being built. Also, many of the subsidized buildings are subsidized housing, so that accommodates lower income people. And the other ones that aren't subsidized, they're all $2,000 a month rent when you look out there. That's not affordable for the regular working class people. So there's a real hole that's left there, and we need to address that. And I think one way we can address it is looking at communities that are focused on single family homes, bungalows, small homes, starter homes that would be affordable so that people can get involved in owning real estate, get in on the game, I guess, if you call it, so that they can build up equity, build generational wealth, and also take pride in the home that they own. And then over time, they can upgrade and get a bigger house. So I think that's how we should approach it.
Thank you, candidate Dominic. Now for the next question. According to the Idaho Falls Police Department, the citywide crime rate has increased by 13%, with some neighborhoods as high as 24%. How do you plan on addressing rising crime, along with making citizens feel safer in their community? We will start the question off with Councilman Freeman.
Thank you. This was addressed with the last group pretty heavily, but community policing, I'm the liaison for the police department, and this is a big discussion we're having about community policing and breaking the city into beats, basically, 5 different beats, and having officers that are familiar, more intimately familiar with those specific areas of the city. I also met with the FOP recently, and there is a general consensus that crime is on the rise in Idaho Falls, and the numbers prove it. I don't think that it was as high as they said in the last with the candidates before, but we are seeing an increase in crime. And I know that we've tried to address, we had some issues down in the numbered streets. We had a fellow walk in and shoot someone in their own home. And we had community meetings about that, and I think we allayed some of the fears there. We've increased patrols in those areas. We have a plan to increase the staffing at the police department, and we're working through it at this time. We got a report from the Police Chiefs Association a number of years ago that came in and said that we were woefully short with our officers, a number of officers, and we're trying to address that right now.
Thank you, Councilman Freeman. We will now move on to candidate Dominic.
Thank you. Yes, I agree 100% with the beat system. I guess one advantage to coming up here after my wife is that I get to add on to what she said. I also agree with the SVU unit, and Bonneville County Sheriff's has a tracking system that's out there so everybody can see it. We are woefully short on police officers. I know retention is also a big thing, so we need to focus on getting more trained sworn officers on the job. So that they can get out there and be in the community. I think we need to work on the engagement with the community between IFPD and the community to build that trust. I think there's definitely some room for communities to get together and look at neighborhood watch type programs and things like that to allow better communication. So definitely we need to work on that. I think that with collaboration and working with the police force and the community and receiving all the input, I mean, I'm a firm believer that good ideas come from anywhere. So any one of you or anybody in the community should bring forth those ideas that they have that could help, and I'm more than willing to listen and try and implement any that seem like they would be helpful.
Thank you, Candidate Dominic. The question now moves to Councilman Francis.
I think sometimes it's easy to talk about what could be, but let me talk about some very specific things that happened over the last 4 years when I was liaison to the police department. And Chief Johnson and I would sit down and we would start talking about what this community policing really means. And really, you think about it, it's proactive policing. It's police officers being known in the beats, as we call it, so that they know the institutions in that area. They've met all the ministers in that area. They've talked to the various institutions, whether it's a senior center or it's Salvation Army or whatever it might be in the community. Those officers begin to know those people. And I know that that can work because as a school teacher, I saw that working in the schools when we had good SRO, school resource officers. And those officers knew the students so well that the students would come to them before they go to the counselors. That was good. But also, they knew when something went wrong, they knew exactly who to go to because they had the ear on the other students in the building. That's community policing the way it can and should work. And that's what we're going for. Now, how to make the community feel better? I think one thing we need to do is communicate so that there is less fear in this community. Sometimes people running for office
Thank you,
promote
Councilman
fear.
Francis. We will now start with our next question. There is a rising concern from citizens about the infrastructure in Idaho Falls being outdated. What infrastructure priorities should Idaho Falls have? We will start the question off with candidate Dominic.
Yes, there's a lot of infrastructure issues that are in place right now that are occurring right now. I think the rapid growth is we're having difficulty keeping up. So we need to focus on ways that we can get that infrastructure in place prior to promoting all the growth. I believe also that we do have a lot of enterprise funds. So a lot of our utilities and infrastructure, like the power and the water and the sewer, those are all enterprise funded. So that means they're self-sufficient with respect to funding. There is need, there's a lot of impact fees that also are being applied from the developers to expand sewage systems, things like that. If they need bigger pipes, then they have to pay to put those in before that development's or when that development's being put in. So we need to work to get the development, to get the infrastructure developed prior to putting in the buildings. And there's definitely water issues. I know we have some water breaks, so we need to work on basically working to resolve those as best we can and prioritize. And right now we're kind of in a catch-up mode, so we need to be a bit proactive in planning our growth so that we can get that done in a timely fashion before growth actually happens.
Thank you, candidate Dominic. We will now move on to Councilman Francis. The time is yours.
Ooh, I'm sorry. From the bottom of my heart, whoever wrote this question, I love it. Because I'll go back to my fear thing. We're being told to be afraid that our infrastructure isn't in place. We do have the infrastructure in place. Our wastewater plant can take 40% more waste. We're ready for the 21st century. We have infrastructure for our water system. We just did a consultant who came in and said, you have plenty of water rights and your wells can supply this city far into the future. We are prepared for growth. And that's what I mean about being a resilient city. It's so exciting to live here and see a city that is already planned for the 21st century, the rest of it, and in some cases beyond. That's fantastic. And that's what we are. And you know what we do when we build? If somebody builds a subdivision south of town or north of town, they have to pay for an 8-inch pipe for water. But we pay them to put a 16-inch pipe in so the next development has a connection to adequate water supply. That's our public works system working in such a way that the rest of the world should look at us and go, you are exemplary.
Thank you, Councilman Francis. Now on to Councilman Freeman.
He's right. Um, we have plans in place to replace so many miles of water line every year, and it's a schedule that is attainable. We're just finishing up a project. It's a wastewater treatment plant. Even though we do have 40 years of capacity left built into the system, we're improving that 40 years by doing a dewatering system to help with those programs. I remember driving around this summer in late in August, early in September, and marveling at how great our streets were. I couldn't find a pothole. I know we'll get them again when winter comes and the streets get torn up. But I think the street department's doing a really good job of getting through a lot of lane miles. One of the things I'd like to talk about with infrastructure is density, and we've made a concerted effort to try to make the city more dense, because then we don't have to serve as big of an area with our infrastructure. If we sprawl all over the place, we have to have longer transmission lines for our electrical system. We have to have more water lines, more sewer lines, more roads. If we infill the city, if we fill in these empty spots in the city, even if it's with high density housing, it increases our ability to service the stuff that we have instead of spreading out all over the place. I don't know if this is, I don't, I'm out of time, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Councilman Freeman. Let's start with our next question. The Idaho Falls community voiced concern about a lack of open green spaces and urban planning in the new developments of the city. When comparing new developments to longstanding neighborhoods, there's a lack of unity that brings the community together. How will you address these concerns? We will start off with Councilman Francis.
You know, that's kind of interesting. I mean, I think I understand it, but we have tremendous green space when you think about it. I mean, that green belt around the river that we're constantly expanding, and our trails along the canals. I mean, we have places people can go and be outside. Now, as far as development goes, every developer who builds on property parcels within the city is required to leave open spaces. That's part of the whole zoning requirement. We also know that our impact fees, one of the places impact fees goes is to parks. And parks will take that impact fee money and use it to build more parks. And we've already outlined where some of those parks are. That's what we keep doing. And you know what I think? I think when you have good green spaces and good parks that people want to go to, you have less crime. Because people are excited to be outside. And that's part of what it can be. Do we need green spaces? Yes, we need green spaces, and I'm all for it. So keep working on it, but I'm not, I keep coming back to fear. It's like, why are we afraid of what we have? Look at Toffus Park. It's a gem in this whole state of Idaho. We don't need to be afraid. We need to say, this is a vibrant community, and we believe in green spaces.
Thank you, Councilman Francis. Now moving on to Councilman Freeman.
Green spaces are required with development. A certain percentage of their development has to be in green space, and with amenities besides. Sometimes playgrounds, sometimes dog parks. People are choosing to add pickleball courts to their developments. We do have a lot of green space. One of the previous candidates talked about that maybe we have too much green space because it's taking money away from police and fire. Well, you know, we've made a concerted effort in the city to improve our quality of life through our green spaces, and I think we have a tremendous park system. I'm very proud of it. As far as the overall urban planning part of it, the impact fees that we have implemented, like Councilor Francis mentioned, a lot of that money is going to go towards new parkland. We have to, you know, so far we've collected enough impact fees that in the next 5 or 10 years, we're going to add 50 acres of city parks through those impact fees. So we are planning for the future with that, and we are increasing our green space. And you know, I know that there's been talk about another golf course. You know, maybe that's in the horizon, but those are very expensive.
Thank you, Councilman Freeman. Now on to candidate Dominic.
Thank you. Yes, I think from talking with PJ Holmes down at Parks and Rec, I know we're undergoing a project right now to extend all the bike paths, pedestrian bike paths that are for only pedestrians and bikes, to interconnect the city and interconnect the communities. I think a big step forward we could take with respect to new developments is having park-centered small community developments that have parks within them, and also provide for that interconnectivity of the bike paths through those communities, so that eventually they'll all be connected, as opposed to a bunch of isolated boxes out there with no interconnectivity, which is kind of how it's being done now. I think another good opportunity is there's a stormwater retention basins requirements for all these communities. All those, right now, Parks and Rec owns quite a few of those, and we're responsible for maintaining them. But we could require those to be in the developments, and those could be used to make parks within those developments, and then that could be attached to the interconnected pathways that would be required as part of the development process. And within the PUDs that are used to generate most of these larger developments, we could require that they do the maintenance on those parks, and that they also maintain the pathways, so we can maintain interconnectivity and increase the size of the Riverwalk as well. Thanks.
Thank you, candidate Dominic. Now this will be our last question for the night. For our closing question, what makes you uniquely qualified to lead Idaho Falls? We will start with Councilman Freeman.
I've already touched on this. I'm going to start with my family history a little bit, because you know, that's the legacy that I bring to this. I've spent half of my life being a servant to this city, as a city council person, as a firefighter, and I think that makes me uniquely qualified. You know, that number of years being connected to this city and loving this city. I was born at Sacred Heart Hospital, and I was raised here. I love this city like you know, sometimes it chokes me up how much I love this city, and I will do whatever it takes to keep the feeling of Idaho Falls the way it is. I know the growth is coming. We can't stop it. We just have to embrace it, and I guess I'm uniquely qualified because of how much I love this city and all the time I've spent here.
Thank you, Councilman Freeman. For our next response, we will have candidate Dominic.
Thank you. Yes, I have a very extensive experience in my field, and it's largely related to optimization. There's processes we have in my field that optimize risk and cost for that risk. So I've got a lot of skills there. I'm very analytical. I review the data, and I look at the numbers, and I want to talk to every individual out there, collect as much information as I can before I'm making a decision, to make the most informed, educated decision I can based on the data that's presented, what it actually says, not a narrative that you're trying to make work based on that data, but what the actually data says. And so one example, I talk about population growth. In the candidate guide that came out for 2025, it identified the population in 2025 as 67,723 people, whereas the statistics from the U.S. Census Bureau for 2024 said there were 69,396 people living in Idaho Falls. That's not growth, that's a reduction in population. So I'm not sure why we need to build 4 apartment buildings for every family that's coming into Idaho Falls when we only had an influx of 2,503 people over the 21 to 24 time frame. So I think I have the analytical skills, and I'll do my best to make good decisions based on the data and the facts and the input of everybody in the community.
Thank you, candidate Dominic. The question now moves on to Councilman Francis. The time is yours.
Uniquely qualified. I'm going to start with 37 years teaching history in the public schools, including almost all of those years in Idaho Falls. And I was a teacher of history, but really I was a student of history, because I was surrounded by such brilliant minds that gave me all new insights into what democracy really is. And that philosophical basis is part of how I make decisions. And I think that's unique here on this stage. And I'm not running against Mr. Freeman, by the way. I'm only running against Mr. Dominic. And out of that, there's something very important to know. Our city council is democratic. It's a representative democracy. We have 6 perspectives on this council. I'm disturbed, I'm nervous that two candidates for two different seats have identical platforms. Now let me say one more thing about why I'm uniquely qualified. I've won several awards as a teacher. Some were mentioned in the beginning. Two mean the most to me. One of them, I was selected by the local attorneys for the Liberty Bell Award for teaching democracy. That was my goal. And the other one was the Civility Award and the Public Service Award from the City Club, because that's who I am, and I'm ready to be it 4 more years.
Thank you very much, Councilman Francis. That concludes our questions for the night. Now we will turn the attention back to Abigail Harward.
Thank you very much to our candidates for being here tonight. They will have booths near the entrance in our cyber hall for any further questions. We hope that you've learned about the candidates, and we encourage everyone to vote on November 4th.